Writing. The entire office went silent when the CEO told him to clear his desk before lunch. Nobody expected the quiet black father who had spent 7 years keeping the company alive behind the scenes to walk out carrying a cardboard box. But what happened after he left made the CEO freeze in the middle of the busiest morning the company had ever seen. On his desk, beneath a stack of ordinary paperwork, the fired employee had left something that would force the entire company to confront a truth it had ignored for years. If you believe that kindness, dignity, and second chances can change a person's life, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Because sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the one carrying the greatest story. It was a bright Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, with sunlight pouring through the enormous glass windows of Halcyon Technologies. Employees moved quickly between desks, carrying coffee, laptops, and folders while the city glittered outside. Among them was Marcus Ellison, a 38-year-old single father who rarely complained, even when life gave him every reason to. Marcus worked as a senior operations coordinator, but his job description never captured everything he actually did. He stayed late when systems crashed, trained new employees without being asked, covered shifts for coworkers facing emergencies, and quietly solved problems that managers often took credit for. At home, his 8-year-old daughter, Zuri, was waiting for him every evening with homework spread across the kitchen table and 1,000 questions about the world. Marcus had learned to measure success differently. To him, success meant keeping the lights on, making sure Zuri never went to bed hungry, and giving his daughter a future bigger than the life he had been handed. That morning, however, Marcus was called into the corner office of the company's CEO, Vivian Caldwell. Vivian was known for her polished suits, sharp decisions, and reputation for never reversing herself once a decision had been made. She stood beside the window while Marcus entered, holding a folder against his chest. There had been a corporate restructuring, she explained, and his position was being eliminated. Marcus stared at her for several seconds, trying to understand how 7 years of loyalty could disappear behind one sentence. He asked whether there was another position available, even a temporary one. Vivian remained firm. The company needed younger talent, new energy, and people who could adapt to a changing corporate culture. Marcus understood what she was saying, even though she never said it directly. His age, his quiet personality, and perhaps the assumptions people made when they looked at him had become more important than his actual work. Marcus thanked her anyway. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply returned to his desk and began packing. One by one, coworkers stopped working and watched him. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked away because they didn't know what to say. Marcus placed a framed photograph of Zuri into the cardboard box, followed by a coffee mug covered with tiny stars, several notebooks, and a worn black folder. His hands shook when he reached for the final item. It was an old photograph of his late wife, Amara, holding baby Zuri against her chest. Marcus looked at it for a moment, swallowed his tears, and carefully placed it inside the box. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus noticed a small black envelope lying beneath his keyboard. It contained a handwritten note from the company's founder, thanking him for saving the business during a devastating systems failure 3 years earlier. Marcus smiled sadly and put the note back on the desk. He could have taken it. He could have exposed every unfair decision made against him. Instead, he left it exactly where it was. Before walking away, Marcus looked around the office one final time. He noticed the unfinished project on his desk, a project that could potentially save the company millions of dollars. He had been working on it for months after discovering a major weakness in the company's supply chain. Nobody knew how close he was to solving it. Marcus could have taken his research with him. He could have walked out and sold the idea to a competitor. But he didn't. At exactly 11:17 that morning, Marcus placed the cardboard box under his arm and walked toward the elevator. The doors closed behind him, and the office slowly returned to normal. For a few minutes, nobody thought much about it. Then Vivian returned to Marcus's desk to collect some files. She opened the top drawer and froze. Inside was a neatly organized emergency operations plan covering the company's most vulnerable systems. Next to it was a handwritten list of employees who had been struggling financially, caring for sick relatives, or dealing with personal emergencies. Marcus had quietly arranged flexible schedules for them without ever asking for recognition. Beneath those papers was a sealed envelope addressed to Vivian. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single page explaining the supply chain problem Marcus had discovered and the solution he had developed. At the bottom was a sentence that stunned her: he had left the complete solution with the company because he believed the employees who depended on it deserved to keep their jobs. Vivian sat down slowly. She had fired a man she believed was no longer valuable, yet he had just protected thousands of people's livelihoods. But there was more. The company's chief financial officer rushed into the room minutes later. A major supplier had just announced an unexpected shutdown, and the company's entire distribution network was at risk. Everyone began panicking. Vivian looked at the document Marcus had left behind. His solution was the only plan that could prevent a catastrophic loss. For the first time in years, Vivian felt ashamed. She found Marcus's emergency contact information and called him. Marcus was already on a city bus heading home, sitting beside his cardboard box. When his phone rang, he almost ignored it. Then he saw the company's number. By lunchtime, Marcus was back inside the building, not as an employee, but as the person everyone desperately needed. He spent the afternoon guiding the technical team through the solution he had designed. He never humiliated anyone. He never reminded them that they had fired him. He simply worked. By 3 o'clock, the crisis was under control. By 4, the company had avoided millions of dollars in losses. Vivian watched Marcus from across the conference room. The man she had dismissed that morning was now the reason hundreds of families would still receive their paychecks. But Marcus didn't ask for revenge. He asked for something much simpler. He asked that the company create a program for employees who were struggling, especially single parents and workers who were too afraid to ask for help. He wanted people to be judged by their character and contribution rather than assumptions about their age, background, or circumstances. Vivian agreed. Marcus was offered his job back, but he declined the old position. Instead, he accepted a new leadership role overseeing employee development and workplace support. His salary increased, but the biggest change wasn't financial. For the first time, Marcus felt that the people around him could see him, not as a black single father struggling to survive, but as a man whose perseverance had become his greatest strength. That evening, Marcus returned home while the sun was still shining through the kitchen window. Zuri ran toward him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Marcus put down his bag and hugged her tightly. He didn't tell her about the humiliation of being fired. He told her that sometimes life closes one door because it is trying to lead you toward a better one. Months later, the company placed a small plaque near the desk where Marcus had once packed his belongings. It carried a simple message about dignity, compassion, and the power of doing the right thing when nobody is watching. And Marcus kept the old cardboard box. He kept it in his office as a reminder that a person's worth cannot be measured by the moment someone decides they are no longer useful. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need a little hope today. And before you leave, make this special request your commitment. Comment, kindness always wins, if you believe we should never judge a person's worth by their appearance, position, or circumstances. Because sometimes the person carrying a cardboard box out the door isn't carrying failure at all. Sometimes they're carrying courage, sacrifice, loyalty, and a future nobody else was wise enough to see. And sometimes, the greatest lesson a powerful person can learn is that the people they overlook may be the very people holding everything together.